Hi, my name's Candace, and I'm 31 years clean and sober. Breath mint. Now, that didn't happen because I was lucky. It wasn't a fluke. It happened because for 31 years, I owned my personal power to choose not to use. Easy? No. Complicated? No. Empowering? You bet. And all of us right now can start empowering addicts to choose not to use. Now, I don't believe that anybody becomes an addict deliberately by choice. Nobody that I know signed up for, let's become an addict and ruin our lives 101. Nobody I know said, hey, let's be an addict in this lifetime, that'll be fun. In fact, most addicts don't even think that they'll ever become addicted. No, that's for the other guy. I'm fine, I can handle it. I can stop anytime I want to. I just don't want to. That's the common theme that we hear from addicts who are choosing to stay in the Ruin Your Life 101 classes. But actually, both statements are true. We can stop anytime we want to. But until we choose to stop, until we choose to handle the realities of life in a different way, we don't want to stop, and we just don't. Today, I want to talk about something that's unpopular among the masses. I know, who deliberately tries to do that, right? But I do, because it's a matter of life and death. I want to talk about what it takes to really recover from addiction. I want to challenge that status quo, that belief that addicts are powerless over their addiction. I don't believe that addicts are powerless. We're all at choice in every single moment. And it's not always an easy choice, but we're all choosing to not use or to use. So it's not something that we can easily choose necessarily, but purely and simply, it is a choice. And how would I know that? I was an opioid addict for 15 years. I was diagnosed with an illness that I was told was incurable. Crohn's disease. Today in Canada, 250,000 people know exactly what I'm talking about. Crohn's is painful, it's embarrassing, it's difficult to manage. Today, thankfully, there are alternative ways to deal with it for those who wish, but when I was diagnosed, way back in the 1970s, the doctors hadn't even really heard of Crohn's. They had no idea what to do for me. So what they did was they gave me prescription after prescription, month after month, year after year, really addictive opioids. Codeine, Demerol, OxyContin. And yes, it helped my physical pain, and it helped my shame, my loneliness, my depression, so I just kept on using it. I never, ever thought that I would become addicted. Me, addicted? That's for the other guy. I was fine. I could handle it. I could stop anytime I wanted to. I just didn't want to. And I was a counselor working with kids at risk. I knew all about addiction. It couldn't get me. Until one day, it did. One day, I started thinking about all the pills I had in my bathroom cupboard. And what if I just took them all now and just ended it? Oh, my heart was beating so fast I thought my head was going to explode. That day, my life just blew up. I knew I had a decision to make, probably the most important decision I was ever going to make. Was I going to die, or was I going to learn how to live? That day was the first day that I didn't self-medicate. That's clinical speak for I didn't pop any pills that day. I didn't pop any pills that day. Thank you. And instead, I chose to feel my pain, to feel my physical pain, to feel my emotional pain, my sadness, my anger, my fear. I felt powerless. I cried a lot that day. And then I decided to reach out for help. The woman at the Vancouver Crisis Center quite literally saved my life. Thank you for that. She listened to me. She respected me. She helped me make a plan to survive, which is what I decided to do that very day, because she told me something that started to make sense to me. She told me that I had the power to choose not to use ever again. Easy? No. But it was the most empowering thing I had ever heard. The power to choose not to use. I chose not to use ever again. One day at a time, just like everybody else who's trying to stay clean for 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute. Anybody who's in that situation is making the same choice. Anybody who wants to stay clean. They're making the choice to choose not to use. And yes, there were minutes that felt like they took hours to pass, weeks to pass. As I lay in the fetal position on my living room floor, just trying to learn how to live. Addiction. It comes in a lot of different forms. Alcohol, drugs, Facebook, chocolate. And whether you think of addiction as a disease or genetic or something you learn at home, underneath all of that, staying in active addiction is a choice. And it's a choice that we can change. Yes, we can. If that wasn't true, there wouldn't be thousands of people all over the world who stop. But I wondered why there were so many people who felt like they didn't have the power to make that choice. What was that about? In a word, powerless. The gold standard of addiction treatment requires that we admit that we're powerless over our addiction. But don't get me wrong, when I was starting my recovery many, many years ago in 12-step programs, there were so many really good things about them. The fellowship, it's just amazing. The sponsorship, sober activities. I even learned how to dance and have sex. Clean and sober, who knew that could happen? It kind of brought me back to my Beatles days, right? The dancing, not the sex. But what I found out was that step one of all of those programs told me the same thing again and again. It told me that I was powerless over my addiction. I even heard people in meetings proudly introducing themselves, saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm powerless." I was told to focus on my powerlessness, to talk about it, to write about it, to cry about it, to argue for my own limitations. I was told that I was powerless over my addiction and that I always would be. And if I couldn't get with the program, there was something wrong with me. And I think there's something wrong with that. Because here's the deal. I knew I wasn't powerless. I had proven I wasn't powerless. I had taken my own personal power and I had stopped using and started recovering. Nobody could have made that decision for me except me. And eventually, I had to walk away from 12-step programs because I just couldn't keep saying something I didn't believe. And I wondered how many other people were feeling the same way that I was. And maybe some of them were going to choose to use because of it. I later found out it was way too many. But that's what fueled the fire in me to get my master's degree and become an addiction therapist. And I've been an addiction therapist for 28 years, working with, thank you. Good. Working with addicts, their families, teaching them about choice in addiction, and showing them that that word does not have to take their power away. Powerless. That word that we've been browbeaten to believe is our cultural definition of anybody struggling with addiction. It's so ingrained in the fabric of our society that we don't even think about it. And because we don't think about it, we don't question it. Instead, we we enable addicts to stay stuck in that faulty belief. Because telling an addict or an addict's family that they're powerless is dangerous. That word has given addicts, families, governments, pharmaceutical companies a pass on personal responsibility. The status quo continues, and addicts continue to overdose and die. 13 people in Canada every day die of addiction. That's the amount of people sitting in your row. 13 people will overdose and die today. But I know, I get it. I felt hopeless and helpless and powerless too in my 15 years of active addiction. I wished it was a disease. Maybe then there'd be a pill they could give me for that too. But I knew better. And I felt like I stood alone in this opinion for a really long time. That was really hard for me sometimes. But I knew, contrary to popular belief, I knew that addiction and Crohn's were two different animals. They were not the same. Addiction is not a disease that has no cure. So we need to stand together. We need to stand together and do something about not calling addicts powerless. There is something that you can do today to help that. Whether you are an addict of any kind, anybody want some chocolate? Yeah? Whether you are an addict, or you know an addict, or you love an addict, you can start today by empowering addicts to choose not to use. And here's how. Number one, change your words. Stop calling addicts powerless. They're not. Number two, change your thoughts that being an addict is a hopeless, helpless, powerless label for life. It's not. Number three, change your actions. Start treating addicts like they're people. Smile at them, say hi, shake their hand, and tell them that they have the power to choose not to use, that they can make a different decision instead, because they can. Imagine a world where addicts no longer believe that they're powerless over their addiction, but instead can really own their personal power to choose not to use. Just imagine.